Welcome to the Encouragement for Work podcast with your host, Mark Griffin, founder and owner of In His Name HR. Each week, Mark interviews nationally known thought leaders from corporate America, higher education, churches, and ministries. His goal is to bring you great ideas that help engage your employees, shift your culture toward higher performance, and increase employee loyalty at the organization you lead. Each episode features an idea or process that's made a tremendous impact on employees and employers alike. Now sit back, relax, and listen in as he delivers encouragement today through this episode's special guest.
Hello, and welcome to the Encouragement for Work podcast. I'm your host, Mark Griffin. Today, I'm just delighted to have my good friend, Vaughn Thurman. Vaughn is CEO of HighGear Software. I met Vaughn in Washington, D.C. a few months ago, and we started talking about engaging employees and how do we get employees excited in the workplace. And I was just amazed at the acumen that Vaughn had around utilizing your mission, vision, values as a tech person. Vaughn has an incredible tech background, but let me introduce Vaughn Thurman. Vaughn, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Well, you bet. There's a lot to tell, and I'm going to try to give you the short version. I am an entrepreneur, former Air Force guy, family man. I have 6 children, 2 grandchildren, 2 more grandchildren on the way, and have at multiple times run multiple businesses at the same time. I have only collected a W-2, other than from the Air Force, about 2 years in my whole life. So from a very early age, I was always trying to figure out how to build a business or build my own way out there. And I kind of made the twist to technology in the early 90s as I began to try to figure out how to apply technology to a construction and services business I was running in the Baltimore Metro in that area. And there's a great story. I still keep an 1,100-page book around to remind me. I bought a boat anchor of a PC and bought an 1,100-page book called Upgrading and Repairing PCs. I read the whole thing in one weekend. I started on Friday night, laid it down on Sunday morning, went to a local store, bought some parts, and got my PC working, and it was the beginning of a change to move into technology. And technology, I always tell my team that we don't sell technology, we sell value. And technology is simply the means by which we deliver that value. But technology and my ability to pick it up very quickly ended up being the opportunity to really gain the opportunity to lead organizations of size. At one point when I was running the 2 tech companies together, this will be much smaller, I'm sure, than lots of people who hear this, but we're getting close to 50 people and serving thousands of people out in the marketplace in a broad base of business, leading a lot of different types of people with different roles: sales, technology, human resources, marketing. It was just a wonderful experience that came along, all because at the end of the day, God had given me the hunger and drive and the mind to learn about technology.
Vaughn, that's great. I love how you explain your background. And what I really appreciate is the fact that, at your heart, you are an entrepreneur. And we have an incredible amount of people that listen to our podcast that are entrepreneurs. They're excited. They're approaching 50. That seems to be the hump where they need HR services, and everyone's excited to grow. So with that being said, growing great organizations means, building in our culture, building in values. How do you hire against your mission, vision, values? And, from your perspective, why would it cost you more than you think if you don't?
I had a terrific opportunity to look at the results of hiring based on mission, vision, and values, and hiring based on the best butt you could get in the seat as 2 alternatives right next to each other. I was running 2 companies. I had a technology services company that was doing well and was well funded, had lots of customers. And I had a fledgling software company running next to it that was not well funded, was relatively small and was kind of living hand to mouth. But we ran out of the same office. And when I needed somebody for my IT services company, I would go out with my checkbook in hand, with my requirements in hand, and what I was determined was to find somebody with the right skills as quickly as I could, with a good-looking resume who would impress people. I was looking for people whose appearance, their presence was going to make the proper impression to help me win more business. And that's how I was building a team. And so that's, kind of team one, the services team. And team two, my other Petri dish right next to it, it's a fledgling company. I'm funding it out of my own pocket. And quite frankly, I only hired because somebody would come along that was such a wonderful fit. They knew somebody else in our team. They really just had the right entrepreneurial mindset for what we were doing, that we couldn't afford not to hire them. And I had to find a way to get it done. And what I began to watch, and a really key moment was, in the history of the business, we had a period where we ended up having to ask the entire team in company number 2 to work for a 20% discount for an extended period of time. We had no idea when it would end, but we knew that if we kept running at full payroll, we were going to run the company out of business in the relatively near term. And, we were worried about losing people. We said they could either take Friday or Monday off. We were only going to pay them 80%. They could decide if they wanted to call it a partial layoff. But, we were in a very, very hot market, and these were software professionals, and they were very high-quality software professionals, and we had every reason to worry that we could lose them, and this was quite a while ago. And what was interesting to see was quite the opposite, that the majority of that team came in on that 5th day anyway and volunteered on their own. There was no collaboration, no request of it. They said, if this is what it takes to get the company in good shape, this is what we've got to do. And on the other hand, my well-paid team, not being asked to make any sacrifices on the other side of the house, was in the middle of significant relational challenges impeding the efficiency of the organization. And nothing could have been clearer to me. It was as if God had sort of dragged me right up and held my nose up to it and said, do you see what's happening here? When I bring you the right people and you hire them, and it had to happen this way, and it had to be that black and white, they are loyal to your mission because they share your values.
Exactly.
And when you hire people simply for talent and skill, they are not loyal to your mission because they do not share your values, and in fact will frustrate you during success while your aligned team will actually bless you during difficulties.
Amen. And this is why Vaughn is on the Encouragement for Work podcast, because we had this discussion that if you lead with mission, vision, values, you can only win. And that's really important. We supported an organization one time that we helped the employees go out, and as they went out into the community, if they were in Walmart or Target or a restaurant or a place of business, and they saw somebody that was unique and happy and joyful and having an impact in that business, to invite them to apply to the company that they're working at as a representative. So sending people out in the community as representatives, finding like-minded people, finding people that are going to support the values can only make a great difference in your organization. Vaughn, our second point to talk about today is leadership lessons from a mission-driven CEO. You went from being from the Air Force to entrepreneurship to CEO, similar to myself. I was in the Air Force. I worked in corporate America and then entrepreneurship. So tell me a little bit and share with the audience some of those key learnings so that they can be more effective in their roles.
Well, first of all, thanks for your service, Mark. I'm sure you'll relate, having gone through that same journey. I remember early interviews where I hired delightful people. I would spend the entire interview telling them how excited I was about my vision for the company. And if they smiled and nodded, I could tell they shared my passion and vision. And I'd hire them and find out that they didn't share my passion and vision and often didn't even have any related skills. And it is because in the beginning, we're so excited about hiring people and we don't really have the experience. I say one of the most important things that I've learned in operating a business and being an entrepreneur is to hire very slow and to fire fast. And
Sure.
The unfortunate decision anxiety that we all experience around letting somebody go is because we think of the very high cost of bringing someone in. But I tell you that the high cost of having someone on your team that doesn't belong on the team is always higher than having an empty chair. It's always higher than the cost and time that it'll take to come up with a person who belongs on that team. And we learned that there is no limit to the amount of assessments, interviews, tasks that we'll ask someone to go through. The person who is going to be a great fit for our organization is going to go through a lot of work just to get the job. They're going to have had to have done a lot of work already to convince us that they're a person of character, that they understand the values that we align to, that they're willing to invest in proving what they can do in the relationship, because that's actually our culture. When we engage with clients, we're willing to go the first and second mile in proving that we'll do what we say we're going to do for customers, because that's not what the marketplace is used to by and large. And so we look for people who have the demonstrated character, it's in their nature, to prove who they are as part of the process of selling themselves to us. And it doesn't mean we can't make mistakes, but boy, has it really decreased it when we have changed to a variety of things like everybody here interviews with at least 4 people. We have a policy that we prefer all 4 people to agree that the person should be a hire. And we'll maybe allow a hiring manager to bypass that if one of the folks says no, but there's got to be a really strong and compelling reason, or it's a very lightweight concern, like I'm only concerned about this and you could probably coach them through it, but I wouldn't hire them. And I think that's made all the difference in the world. People realize they worked for the chair and they want to fight to keep it. Our average tenure in the company that I'm running today is north of a decade. Even though we're adding new people, they're pulling it down and we're still north of a decade.
That's awesome. So wrapping it up with our third point, building high-performing teams, and it sounds like you're doing that because you got 10 years in tenure average. So tell me a little bit about how you do build high-performing teams within your organization.
Yeah, well, we would be in trouble if we didn't have some sense of that, as after all, our software, HighGear, is focused on putting teams in high gear and really helping people get the best out of them. And part of what our software is designed to do, besides being a no-code platform that allows non-technical people who understand what their work looks like to create visual dashboards for people to see that work entering and exiting their queue, to create audit trails and clarity around what's been done. But what it also does is it creates clarity around the thing that they need to do next. And honestly, I think that goes back to something I wrote about in my first book, right? I think great leaders need to become great quitters. They need to give the people beneath them room to grow into leadership and learn to do the things that the leader themselves loves to do. Not just the things they hate to do, but to have a share of the things that the leader loves to do. And what's really important, more important, I think, than anything else running a business, is to make sure people know exactly what it is they need to do. What contribution do they need to deliver to help the organization be successful? And I think that if that's communicated, whether it's communicated verbally, technically, whether it's something that's echoed on the hallways or printed in something that's hanging up on the wall, clarity in terms of what they need to do, freedom to do it, trust, and clear accountability when things go wrong. Not that you're running around chasing people down, but that you figure out, how did this go wrong and how do we fix it? How do we make sure it doesn't happen again, so that people and the organization and the processes that support it are growing it together?
That's awesome. Vaughn, you've been a great guest. I really appreciate you coming on our Encouragement for Work podcast. We'd love to have you back in a couple months, and we'll be reaching out to you. So again, thank you. Listeners, have a great week. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
This episode of Encouragement for Work has been brought to you by Job Shepherd. Post-COVID-19 recruitment has been unquestionably hard for employers, with many struggling to find quality employees in the aftermath. Religious exempt employers have had an especially difficult time. Welcome to Job Shepherd, a platform that will change all of this for you. Job Shepherd was created to meet the demand by Christian employers, including ministries, camps, churches, colleges, and Christian for-profit companies in their search for qualified job candidates. Now, for a limited time only, employers post a job for free. Job seekers, come join us. You are always free. Learn more at www.jobshepherd.com.